Today we have the great honor of having Irvine Welsh here with us. Irvine is perhaps best known for his novel Trainspotting, which was later turned into a movie. The screenplay was written by John Hodge and was nominated for an Academy Award, and it starred Ewan McGregor, and he actually had a little cameo in that film. Some of you may have seen it.
It was a major role.
And it was about nominally young people's relationship with heroin. Seems to be something of a theme. Despite being best known for Trainspotting, Irvine is also the author of many other novels, screenplays, and short films. Such novels including Filth, Porno, and Ecstasy, Three Tales of Chemical Romance. Porno is actually the sequel to Trainspotting. Crime is Irvine's second novel that is set in America, transplanting a Scotsman into Florida. And this is his first time as a Scotsman being transplanted into a Google office. So I'd like you all to welcome Irvine Welsh.
So I'll just read a little bit from the book. Is this what it is? Yeah? Let me think. I suppose a bit of a backstory of it first before I start reading. Where are we? Yeah, it's about this guy, Ray Lennox. I'll take this off. No, I can't take this off. It's about this guy called Ray Lennox, who's a Scottish cop, and he's not really a proper cop. He's basically sort of he's attracted to kind of hunting down sex criminals in Edinburgh, and he's kind of he gets involved in this child murder case, which happens back at Edinburgh, a child abduction and murder case, and it basically unhinges him because there's a lot of things in his own life that he hasn't properly dealt with. So it's about him kind of. He's had this breakdown. It's about him. He goes to Florida with his fiancée to get away from all the kind of stresses and strains of it, of his life back at Edinburgh, basically, and they're going to plan their wedding. And but what happens is he has this argument with his fiancée, and he tears off, and he goes into this bar, and he meets these two women, and they do loads of cocaine, and he's been recovering in NA anyway, so he's a bit unhinged and a bit mashed up, and he goes back to this woman's house, basically this woman called Robin and her friend Starry. So basically, this is him back at their house. Unfortunately, I've just realised that. I've been touring this book in Britain, and because there's a lot of American characters on it, I do put on an American accent sometimes, and which is great in Britain. Everybody says, "Oh, you do a good American accent, that's fantastic!" But it'll sound absolutely shit to everybody here. So, apologies in advance for that. So, this is Lennox in the narrating this passage in the apartment in Little Havana in Miami. Starry has set up the drinks. Miller's all round, with vodkas and Pepsi, and she's racking out more lines of cocaine on the coffee table. More is good, the first law of consumer capitalism. Second law, immediate is all. Lennox feels a binge coming on. Starry catches the hunger in his eyes. Go on, Scary. Her manner is coquettish. He is about to test the more constricted vent when a young girl wearing a nightdress appears in the doorway of the room. Her skin is a tawny contrast to the paleness of her mother's, yet the girl still cuts an almost spectral figure. Brown hair hangs down the sides of a longish face onto her shoulders. She rubs sleep from her eyes in a very obvious theatrical manner. Shamed, Lennox immediately ceases his activity and stands up. "Hey, I'm Ray," he says, getting between the kid and the stuff on the table. "Tiana Marie Hinton, you get back to bed, young lady. This is growing up time," Robin declares in a panicky voice. Lennox can envisage one of the women in the South Beach real estate commercials privately deploying perhaps after hearing of a market slump. All the time, she looks at Lennox with a stupidity teetering between sheepish and bovine. The kid briefly glances at him for the first time. It's a cold look, appraising rather than judging, but referencing that he's something that she's seen before, something not good. It dawns on Lennox that she's been alone while they were cavorting over at Club Juice and Myopia in Miami Beach. It wasn't right. Kids shouldn't be left alone like that. Brittany Hamill should have never walked to school alone. He feels anger rise in him and fights to swallow it down with a gulp of his beer. All the time, he keeps his frame between the girl and the table. As she's distracted by her mother's ministrations, Lennox places a copy of Perfect Bride, Trudy's magazine, over the white stripes. Catches Starry sneering at Robin again. "I couldn't sleep," the girl says. "I heard you guys coming in." She looks at Lennox again and nudges her mother, seeking confirmation. "This here's Ray, honey. Ray's a friend from Scotland." "Where men wear skirts," Starry laughs. "Right, Ray?" "Right." Lennox practically ignores her, focusing again on the young girl. Her arms and legs are too long for her body. Her hair is a scraggy mop, and she seems all angles. A kind of ungainly ugly duckling. But her eyes, he catches the brief glimpse of a terrible knowledge in her eyes. For a second, Lennox has a sinking sense that they're asking the world for help. Then it's gone, and she's just another tired kid, shortchanged on affection, security, and sleep. "Y'all get yourself to bed now, you hear, honey?" Robin says. The girl lopes away, mumbling and waving a cursory goodbye without turning around. As she leaves the room, Starry changes the CD and turns up the volume as Cuban music fills the air. Lennox's knowledge of this genre starts and stops at the Buena Vista Social Club, which he's seen with Trudy, who'd bought him the CD. With its poignant beats, sweeping strings, and muted brass, this is the saddest music he's ever heard. Although with Spanish vocals and purporting to be Cuban, it somehow feels as if it's been made locally, perhaps in this very Miami neighborhood. He stifles his temptation to inquire about the artist. He would be relieved never to hear its terrible beauty again. Fitfully, he wonders about Trudy. What will she be doing now? In the hotel room, indulging in one of her two pathetic responses, worried sick, or not giving a fuck. Perhaps occupying both states simultaneously. "This is fucked," Lennox whispers, bouncing down on the couch in melancholy laughter before Starry shimmies over and drags him back to his feet. They dance together a little before Robin moves in. The women are being sexy. Lennox thinks speculatively of threesomes. Isn't that what he needs to feel his masculinity again? Extremis. It worked the last time. Job and drug had combined to cauterize his body and soul. But a nasty current now hangs between Starry and Robin. They are harshly and nakedly competing for his attention, grinding closer, suggestive eyes expanding with need, their mouths tight with aggression. He thinks about yesterday at the Torpedo Club as he feels Robin move into him, her arms reaching up around his neck, hanging from him like a charity shop suit in a relentless, reckless bid to shut Starry out. Then the doorbell buzzes, and while he's aware that more people have appeared, Lennox feels his nostrils, even as they bubble with snot, filling up with the scent of Robin's hair. The buzz of the cocaine works in a square throb with the beat, the booze, and the jet lag. A wave of exhaustion, almost breathtaking, hits the back of his eyes. Letting them close for either seconds or minutes, he watches the exploding purple blotches swirl around in the universe inside his head. Then he feels Robin pull away from him. He opens his eyes to be confronted by a lined, ashen face with short grey hair plastered back over the scalp, gelled and spiked enough to see the comb lines. It belongs to a thin white man, yet who looks wiry and strong, and his ophidian eyes burn Lennox, and he notes Robin too. The proximity moves him to take a backward step. Then he sees a denim shirt tucked into jeans of the same material, looks down at brilliant white sneakers. Curtly nodding at Lennox with a smile so slight it would have needed a moving camera to record it, the newcomer then says to Robin in a lo-fi country accent, "You been out shopping again?" "This here's Ray," Robin replies apologetically. Already, Lennox sensed not only history, but unfinished business. "Name's Lance Deering. Pleasure to meet you, Ray." He grins, extending his hand. Lennox strategically takes it in his good left, despite the awkwardness, relieved he's presented that one, due to the power he feels in the grip enclosing it. "You got him busted a mitt there?" Deering asks, nodding to his dangling right. "Industrial accident," Lennox boldly retorts. But Lance Deering can evidently read the trepidation on his face as he calmly says, "Don't you worry none, Ray. You ain't stepping in no toes round here. We all been round the block enough times to know to take our pleasures where we find them. No questions asked. Ain't that right, gals?" Starry's pearly teeth flash, her brows arching like a corporate fast food executive who has sold face as well as soul to the company store. Robin smiles weakly, dutifully pouring some drinks for Lance and another man present. He's squat and stocky, Latino, with collar-length oily hair and a sandpaper chin. His gaze at Lennox is one of undisguised hostility. "This here's Johnny," Lance smiles. "You gotta be the guy from out of town," Johnny says in a scratchy voice, looking Lennox up and down. His head seems way too big for the features squashed ungenerously into the middle of it. His big slaughterman's hands look formidable, along with the dense body and shifty eyes. They suggest a man prepared to take what he wants without expecting much in the way of debate. This notion is countered by a flabby gut straining at a t-shirt bearing the slogan, "We'll fuck for coke." "I don't think he's the same guy you're thinking of, Johnny," Lance grins at Lennox. "But I do hear that you're in sales." "Fucking sales," Lennox thinks. "What is this?" "Yeah." "Me too," Lance smiles, eliciting a giggle from Starry. "But I guess that this fella ain't the same type of salesman as you," Johnny laughs. "I guess he probably ain't," Lance Deering says in mock sorrow. "But then again, I reckon that there might be just two types of salesmen, good and bad. Ain't that right, Ray?" Lennox remains silent, Starry's capricious grin telling him it was them she had talked to on the phone earlier. Their presence is certainly a surprise to Robin, and not, it seems, a pleasant one. Lennox moves away, sits down in the settee. Silence is always the best way, he's found, in such situations. His eyes scan around the room, always seeming to wind up back at Robin's legs, hips, or arse. He's aware that he wants to fuck her, but considers shamefully this is probably just because the opportunity has receded with Lance and Johnny's presence. But now anyone will do. Something has gone off behind his cock. Instead, he chops out another line from the big rock in a larger packet Starry has placed on the table, all the time on edge against the kid reappearing, and he takes it down. He looks at the print of a semi-nude woman on the wall. Then he considers Johnny and Lance again. The concern that he felt at their intrusion has now gone. His fear evaporating, he fancies kicking it off. Now all that's inside him is a black anger, still and even. He's not thinking of Brittany Hamill back at Edinburgh anymore, but he knows that when he does, he could kill anyone for her demise. And he feels like killing. Just hurting would be insufficient. His dark mood creeps through his veins like a poison. He knows those faces, Deering's mocking reptilian smile, Johnny's pudgy, vacant stare. If only those men knew the danger they were in. He grinds his teeth till he imagines he hears the enamel crack. But he's a cop, abroad. Calm the fuck down. So he goes to the kitchen and gets another beer from the fridge. Dull those coke rushes. Robin follows him. He wants to fuck her and kill the rest of them. Even Starry, especially Starry. Something about her has disturbed him. That protean presence, 1 minute sexy, the next malign and controlling. She changed when those guys came in. He could feel it, see it in her eyes. Maybe it was just a coke. It was good stuff, not too chemical. Maybe it was because he was doing all her gear. He wonders about offering her some cash. Feels a wad of 20s in his pocket. He can't think laterally. His thought pattern is linear, like a high-speed locomotive careering towards one destination. All he can do to stop this is take more coke. It helps. You can outrun your thoughts. He heads back into the living room, Robin still pursuing him, ranting something about her star signs as she lifts up the copy of Perfect Bride. The lines he'd hidden from the kid are intact. Starry moves over and augments them for Lance and Johnny. They're nothing now, the other three. No threat, just a source of drugs. A defiant sense of entitlement fuses him. I'm on holiday. Starry has another big bag of stuff, a big rock. It might be a long night. A long, long night that lasts half an hour. They take another line each. Lennox needs the drug now more than ever. He recalls how they would sit near the toilet in the Grapes, the young copper's bar, or up in somebody's flat, often his, snorting and boasting of how they had put away this cunt and threatened that cunt and done this cunt and would get that fucking bastard. But the real vitriol was not reserved for the criminals, but the bosses, senior police officials, local and national politicians. It was these spastics that fucked everything up, that fucked up the job. Lennox has done what he refers to as the rehab thing and still goes to regular NA meetings. He knows how the drug presses you like a wild flower into something resembling yourself, but a one-dimensional representation of it. Jagged and volatile, all sneers and jeers, pushing back your boundaries of verbal and physical and sexual violence. Sexual violence. Brittany, once a girl, then just reduced. You have to stop thought. The line goes up his nose. Young Brittany Hamill's face dissolves, becomes the attractively sluttish woman opposite him. Robin. The cloying, irritating, girlish voice somehow grows sexy. A southern belle, Scarlett O'Hara to his Rhett Butler, way down in Alabama. Milky tones inquiring, y'all want to go lie down for a while, honey? And Lennox knows that even feeling like fucking the world, it will take extremity, violent, perverse extremity to make his floppy penis anything like hard enough to do the job. In a bit, he says, charging his glass with a bottle of vodka. He feels trapped in a skanky vortex of his own making. Lance Deering has swooped down to rant at him, ostensibly telling him about fishing, but Lennox knows the charged power of words and cocaine, and that Deering is trying to establish presence, power, dominance. Pulled a big old bastard out of the sea yesterday. Took a while and I thought he'd bust a line at one point, but I stayed on his ass. That was the thing. I stayed on his ass. Sucker was going nowhere once he bit on my hook. So Ray Lennox kicks back with a skinny smile on his lips and gives monosyllabic answers. As he looks into this man's leathery face, watches the spittle shoot from the corner of his mouth, he feels nothing now. He neither likes nor dislikes Lance. How can he? They're strangers on cocaine, grinding their teeth, obstacles for each other to navigate, Formula One drivers trying to go around traffic cones at high speed. They rant in short bursts at each other in an ugly intimacy, each exposing the same raw nerve of ego to the other. Then Lance gets up to dance with Robin, who obviously fears him, and a smiling Starry, as Lennox considers his lot. He can't marry Trudy. If they were ever going to get married, they would have been by now. He met her when she was 18 and he was 27. 8 years ago. He'd just got his second big promotion, Detective Inspector Lennox. He'd be the youngest chief constable in Scotland. They'd only half joked. But after that, nothing. Treading water, snorting more cocaine. Then Trudy and him had split up. 3 years later, though, they started going back together again. He had come back from Thailand and was cleaning up, going to the NA and was back at the kickboxing. They met at a new gym he was trying out. Unbeknown to him, she was a member. A coffee, catching up. Both free agents. The spark, still there, catching up. Dinner, a film, coffee, bed, catching up. The sex, it was better than before. Trudy, now a sleek, confident, mid-20s gym rat rather than a slightly pudgy teenager. Him, a sober shagging machine, the carnal obsession dominating absolutely everything. Shrugging aside the words of several guys on the force, reheated cabbage, beware, bad move. But she loved him. She loved him because he was a lost cause and her own vanity was strong enough to convince her that with her brand of tough love, Ray Lennox, Project Lennox, could be successfully realised. He could become a superannuated Superman, a breeder of good Scottish Protestant children who would excel not just academically, but at the BBs and school sports, and be the model citizens of the world, as the Scots always were, or at least the ones designated for export. Trudy saw how he'd changed. Matured was the term she frequently used. The first time she touched him again was to run her finger down his nose. It's bent a little, she'd said. Accident in Thailand. Broke it, he explained, looking into her eyes. That was what made me give up the gear. I realised what I was doing, what I'd lost. She liked what she saw. But she'd seen what she wanted to see. He was a mess, affecting a seen-it-all blasé front when his insides were like chopped liver. Cool Lennox with the shredded nerves. Sometimes punching and kicking the bags helped, sparring with the gloves, building up the strength, speed, and confidence that came with it, earning the swagger, knowing that other men sensed that it wasn't empty, that there was something behind it. Sometimes, though, when something really bad happened, only talk helped. But in Edinburgh, you only talked and drink, and cocaine helped you drink and talk longer. The Brittany Hamill case was that something bad. Soon he was struggling at NA, scrambling and sweating half-heartedly at the gym. Every time he flipped through that register with all those nonce faces to deal with, he wanted coke more than ever. Come on, honey, Robin says, cutting to the chase in frustration. I want to fuck. Her savage desperation minding him of the stripper in Fort Lauderdale, or Trudy even. Does that sound so bad? So selfish? Lennox thinks. Aye, it does, you fucking hingoot. Your wee lass is in the next room. No. But I don't want to shag you. I mean, he stalls, grimly savouring the power of rejection for a beat. I can't. I've had too much coke. Robin steals a fearful glance at Lance and Starry, locked in a flirtatious Latin dance. With their swampy grimaces and scornful whispers, they seem to be conspiring to destroy them both. Meanwhile, Johnny sits in the armchair, broody and splenetic, his eyes bulleting out bad vibes. Lennox looks at Robin's shrunken, haunted face. Let's just go next door and lie down a little, she whispers in an undisguised plea. I need to be with someone, Ray. I'm fucked, my life's going to shit. I don't know what I'm going to do if it wasn't for Tiana. She's the only good thing I've done in my goddamn miserable, fucked up life. She hasn't realised that her voice is picked up and that the others have been listening to the exchange. That sounds real fun, Starry mocks. A professional victim and a guy who can't fuck her. You little sweet talker, you. Lance rolls his eyes and Johnny laughs heartily. It's now officially a house divided. Why? Robin squeals as she tugs Lennox on his bad hand, compelling him to follow her to the door. Do people have to be mean like that? Why? It's fucking cruel. Oh, spare us, Starry snaps in disdain. Lennox hears her laugh. She'll be back when she needs more blow. I reckon about 20 minutes from now, Lance adds in sagely mocking tones. Lennox finds himself being led away from the bag of coke from the source of his power. How we love what kills us. He is still everywhere but where it matters as Robin drags him onto the bed, her skirt ridden up, revealing a flesh-coloured thong emblazoned with the slogan, I have the pussy, I make the rules. She tears his garment to the side, exposing a tuft of pubic hair like a punk mohawk, and kisses him on the mouth. He catches the dirty, foul stale tobacco on her breath, feels his own jaw clamping. Robin pulls away from his tight, unyielding lips and lies back on the bed. By the light, he sees her jawbone sink into her face, melting into the obscene, bloated flesh of her neck that seems to have appeared from nowhere, making him think of that exotic frog with its shocking, instantaneous expansion of throat. Lennox is frozen, an insect in the proximity of these hypnotic, bulging eyes. So she springs back up and she's on him, unzipping him, her hand inside his trousers and pants, her urgent fingers asking the same question repeatedly without getting the reply they crave. A yawn of exhaustion bubbles up through the cocaine rushes. Lennox tries to stifle it, but it tears free from his face, almost sending his jaw into a spasm. He can hear Robin panting desperately, "Sexy, sexy boy." It's probably not that long after midnight, yet he can sense the next morning's dawn spinning relentlessly over him from space. A glance at Robin reveals her eyes still protruding like a mad scientist's. "I can get you going, Ray. I know what you guys like." She lurches over to the bedside locker and produces a pair of fur-lined handcuffs from a drawer. "We can do anything you want. You want to fasten me to the bed? We can do anything you want." Robin is cut short as a terrified shriek fills the air. It doesn't stop. Lennox's first thought is that it sounds like a child. Then both he and Robin realize it's her daughter. She's screaming. Lennox zips up and runs towards the noise, with Robin following. And that'll do me, I think.
Anyway, Mikey fucking Forrester is one of my favorite characters. I know you draw a lot of motivation from Edinburgh, where you grew up, and I believe now you're living in Dublin.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of curious how you see the differences between the two places, and are we going to have a hardcore Dublin novel in the future?
Yeah, I mean, I've been in Dublin for 4 years now, and it's the longest I've ever been anywhere, basically, in the last 30, and I kind of really like it. Settled in there, and I think that one of the things is that I don't, there's so many great Dublin writers, so many brilliant Irish writers, like Roddy Doyle, Joseph O'Connor, people like that, and they do Dublin better than I ever could, so I don't really want to write about Dublin for these kind of reasons. I mean, I did a short film, wrote and directed a short film which was set in Dublin, with all Dublin characters. But I've kind of, one of the reasons I want to move, and I'll probably move next year, is that I kind of feel myself going native a bit now. I'm watching RTE instead of BBC. I'm reading the Irish Times instead of the Guardian or whatever. And I'm kind of just becoming sort of, becoming more and more into it. I mean, if you're Scottish, it's an easy thing to slip into because the cultures are very similar, so you do just kind of fall into it quite easily. So I kind of really should probably get back to the UK, so I'm kind of planning to do that next year. But yeah, I mean, as you probably know, just how much it's changed in the last 15 years or so. It's absolutely incredible what's going on there, and it's quite an exciting place to be because it's basically come out an 800-year recession, and there's money there for the first time, and there's this excitement about the place, and it's a kind of, some ways it's not good as well. There's a gold rush mentality, and a lot of the old, the old kind of Dublin is kind of disappearing before your eyes. But it's kind of really, it's been fascinating to be in a place that's just in such rapid transition.
First of all, I'd say that your American accent is far better than you think it is.
I can see a lot of people going,
And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about one of my favorite characters from Trainspotting, which is Spud.
Yeah, Spud's one of my favourite characters as well because, everybody the whole point of having a lovable loser is that you do kind of love them, and unfortunately they do always lose. You can't make them, you can't really make Spud kind of have any kind of really successful life at all because that he's, in spite of all his good intentions, and in some ways maybe because of all his good intentions, he's going to self-destruct at some point, and we've all kind of, we've all known people like him. I think that's why people identify with him. You know, just basically a nice guy who's very kind of easily led and likes to have a good time, and has probably got maybe just one skin too few for this world. And so that's the way I've always seen him, really. You know, as a kind of basically a well-meaning nice guy who's just a wee bit kind of too sensitive for his own good.
I always enjoy your interpretation of, I guess, the office setting in Scotland, like in Master Chefs, you know, a lot of office work. I'm wondering, did you ever work in an office or a corporate setting, and what sort of jobs did you maybe hold before becoming an author?
Yeah, I mean, I worked for Edinburgh City for a while, and I think a lot of the office politics thing came from there, and it was it was a strange organisation because it was very, very traditional, like a lot of British councils are, and then it kind of suddenly modernised very quickly. So you had this very kind of old guard there that had been there for a while, and then you had these kind of new go-getters coming in. So there's this kind of conflict, and because I mean it's like it's just that thing about because Edinburgh is such a sort of like any city in Britain, it's, you know, the social class divisions kind of weigh quite heavily in British culture, as I'm sure that you know, very much so compared to the States. That it's that old kind of thing again. I don't know who said it, but it's impossible for. I think it was, I don't know who it was, but somebody said it's impossible for an Englishman to open his mouth without at least, you know, a dozen people in the room despising him. You know, I think that this is what you get. You get this kind of thing in politics. You know, in kind of office politics as well. As soon as somebody speaks, they're instantly tagged by kind of social class, kind of family background, sort of place they come from, kind of, you know, religion, school they went to, and all that. So it's just set up for conflict, really. And it's quite amazing how people actually do have quite kind of good working relationships on the whole there, you know, in organisations in Britain, because there is this there is just this horrible sort of class thing that kind of you know, that does kind of sort of boil away in the background, which is kind of maybe not good from a social cohesion point of view, but fascinating when you're a writer. It's a gift, really.
So I imagine you got to do some research in Florida for this book. I was wondering what your impression of Miami and Florida in general was.
Yeah, I mean, I've bought a place in Florida about 5 years ago because I used to go over there for the Winter Music Conference when I was doing DJing and was involved in dance music. And it was just a great bit of fun, basically, and I just liked Miami Beach and all that. So I got a small apartment there which I can retreat to when, you know, I was going to say when the weather over in Ireland and the UK gets really bad, but it's really bad all the time now, you know. So I find myself spending more and more time there because we don't really get summers now over in these islands. And the great thing about Miami is it's like it's. So, I don't know. I'm trying to think who described. I think it was Andre Dubas in his recent novel that described it as it's like America getting turned on its side, and everything. Anybody who's rootless, who's not bolted down to some kind of relationship, just falls into Miami and falls into Florida, and and not just America, but also the kind of Central America and South America. It's a bit like. It's a bit like what Ellis Island was 200 years ago, or LA was 50 years ago. It is this kind of point of embarkation for new Americans as well. So there's this tremendous kind of vibrancy there in the area. But there's also, against that, there's also this very kind of sinister sort of background to Miami. It's not like kind of Boston or Chicago or the New York boroughs where people have been there a long time and they really have a civic pride about it and they really care about the town. You know, it feels like a kind of a rootless, lawless sort of place, and in some ways it is. But again, an interesting place to be if you're a novelist. So very inspiring. But this particular thing, because it's about, it's basically about a paedophile organisation that Lennox comes into conflict with. I wasn't really interested in researching on pedophilia. I mean, I certainly wasn't going to research online because you can get into all sorts of to borrow that way, like Pete Townsend and things like that. But I wasn't too interested in the sort of the paedophile. I spoke to some police officers and some social workers about the modus operandi of these gangs. I wasn't interested in sort of kind of child pornography or anything like that, or kind of or what kind of stuff people kind of watch, or it's just that I had no interest in the book. And I wasn't really interested in pedophilia in general. I was more interested in which is a kind of this book was a kind of departure, because it was like what I've been interested in as a writer is how people fuck up, how we make the wrong decisions to compound the problems that are already there in the world that we face. This was more interested in, because I wasn't interested in the pedophilia as such, I was interested in how people go over it, how they kind of heal themselves, and I went to a lot of survivors groups to talk to a lot of people who had been abused, and it was quite inspiring, really, because there's so many people who, so many pedophiles have been abused themselves. We get this this thing going that because somebody becomes abused, they might turn to pedophilia, but it's very rare that people actually do that. Most people just get over it, and some people it's actually the making of them, the resolve to sort of do good and to help other people more, and so there's a kind of it was quite inspiring. It was harrowing, but it was quite inspiring to talk to people who'd been through this kind of thing, on this kind of journey. So that was what kind of the emphasis of the book became about about how people kind of help each other and how they heal and how they get over these kind of things. And it's basically about Lennox, the cop, and Tiana, the young girl from Florida, and how they help each other to sort of to come to terms with what's happened to them both.
It sounds like you do a fair amount of research, at least certainly in the build-up to this novel. When it gets to the point where you are actually getting into the process of writing, are you methodical and disciplined? Is it difficult for you, or are you more of do you write when you can? Do you try and keep a schedule?
Yeah, I mean, I try hard, but I kind of I'm a bit of a sort of an all or nothing type of person, just kind of once it gets to a kind of critical mass where I've got to finish it, I'll just obsess about it and lock myself in a room until it's kind of done, really. I mean, I can't, I find it hard to switch off and to get back into normal life, which makes it quite difficult to live with when you're in that zone, and I mean, I've been doing a lot more work in film now, because I think that I find writing a novel very, very intense, and it's not good for your mental health to be with all these people that don't exist, locked in a room with them for so long. So it kind of, I just finished a film in Wales. We've been doing this film in South Wales about the world of professional darts, which is just British professional darts, which is kind of very different from this subject matter. Very much kind of light-hearted, kind of mockumentary. Kind of like the Spinal Tap of British darts, basically. So it was great fun to do, and once I've got this tour out the way, I just go back and edit and start editing that film, and it's just so good working with different people, and filmmaking being such a collaborative thing, and novel writing being such a lonely thing. I feel that I need to be involved in both of them for my own kind of. Just for my own sanity and my own kind of creative sort of energizing, if you like.
So recently you've written a couple of books with Scottish people transplanted into the U.S., and I was wondering what motivated that sort of writing, what's attractive about the U.S. as a setting, why write about people from Scotland in the U.S. rather than Americans, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I've probably... I would like to have a kind of an American sort of protagonist. If I was writing about the US again, I probably would have the characters as American. I probably just didn't have the confidence to write as an American. And I think that you kind of, I think it is a difficult thing to do, to write from. You can get it wrong so easily. If you're writing, even I found that writing kind of parts for Irish characters for the short film I've done. You know, I mean, it's filmmaking, you can get away with it because the actors will tell you that this isn't right. You know, but if you're doing it in a book, you've got nobody to tell you if the dialogue isn't sort of isn't working out and all that. And I mean, my wife's American, but if she reads it, I think she just winds me up and says that's Americans would never say that. I said, but I hear them saying that all the time. You know, so I think it's just a kind of a way to take the piss out of me, I think. But yeah, I mean, it's like it's kind of, you know, you can't, unless you really get to know the country and the culture, you know, it's easy to think you can understand it on a very superficial and cheesy level, you know. And I mean, I'm finding out more about America all the time. I mean, I kind of, I mean, in Britain and Europe, I mean, everybody is an expert on America who's never been there. You know, and they just get the skewed view that we get of it is very much a kind of Hollywood sort of generated view of it.
So your central character this time is a cop, and that's not the first time that you've done that. And I just wondered, what do the Edinburgh Police make of you? I mean, you give them quite a hard time, and do you find yourself getting stopped and abused?
Yep. Trust a Scot to ask the awkward questions here. But, it's yeah, they're kind of. It's a usual story. I mean, we're talking about like organisations and all that later on. I mean, I think the rank and file coppers are great about it, and but it's the people who have got corporate responsibility for the image of the police force and all that kind of stuff. They seem they're a bit more nervous about it, obviously. I remember that when my book Filth came out, which was a sort of the real kind of crazy sort of racist, misogynistic sort of mad copper. And I'd been out just after the book had come out. I was out celebrating. I was heading on this train, and I met heading on this train down to Devon, and I met this old pal I hadn't seen for a while, and we got very drunk and we got involved in this brawl on the train, and we got arrested and put into the cells for the night. And I thought, oh my God! And there's this stuff about the police raiding bookshops and taking one bookshop in Southampton and taking all the window displays out, and you know, because of the cover of it, they objected to. I thought, I'm going to get a real kicking in the cells tonight. But when I woke up, there were all these books for me to sign. All the coppers in the station had brought around all these books for me to sign. So that was quite a surprise, like, you know. And I remember I was at a football game at Starks Park in Kirkcaldy, actually, and this copper asked me to sign his notebook, and then you know, his mates kept coming up and asking me to sign the notebooks, and they kind of joke about it. They say, "Oh, we've got a Robbo." There's a guy we call Robbo in our station and all this sort of stuff. So basically, you know, the rank and file have been really great about it. But I think the people know that it's, you know, it's like, it's, you know, it's not a kind of an attack on the police. It's like it's about somebody who's a disturbed and deranged individual, and whether they're a copper or a plumber or you know, it doesn't really matter. You can be from any kind of walk of life, really. But it's more interesting if they're a cop because they've got power, basically.
So I guess that's that for today. So can we thank Irvine Welsh for coming out here and speaking up?
Thanks very much.